Hello. Have you signed the petition?
Not yet, no, because you know me, I'm not very technical at stuff like that. I was going to start differently, but it's your show, you do what you want.
Well, let me just reassure you that it's actually really easy, because I don't normally do these things either, but I thought this thing is getting ahead of steam, and I think we've all got to pile in. And
all right, let me play devil's advocate. Let me play devil's advocate. I am absolutely with you and the millions of people who think this bloke is a disgrace. He has no plan, he has no conviction, he has no backbone. I don't buy this government at all. It makes me furious with the shambles that was the Tory party. But we cannot fall for the BS that the King is going to get involved. This is not going to change the government. Yes, it will absolutely, Isabel, say to this government, globally and at home, not very popular. It's not going to make any difference, though, is it? Come on.
No, I mean, I'm not pretending it's going to actually in some way trigger an election. I mean, unless... So there are about 40 million people who are eligible to vote in this country. So unless basically most of them sign it, I can't see it's going to make it actually going to force an election. And in fact, even if the entire adult population signed it, it wouldn't legally force anything. But what it is just a big message, isn't it? It's just a message to this lousy lot about just how much they are utterly despised by how many people. And I think that's important.
Yeah, that's a strong thing. Well, he was on this morning. This is really interesting. And I want to pick you up on something with Farage. He was on this morning. My mate Andy Peters interviewing him. Have a listen to this. It's Starmer's response earlier.
Look, I remind myself that very many people didn't vote Labour at the last election. I'm not surprised that many of them want a rerun. That isn't how our system works. There would be plenty of people who didn't want us in the first place. So, look, what I focus on is the decisions that I have to make every day. And it's a bit like opposition.
Surely you want us, the public, to trust you, to like you, to think he's the man for the job, he's doing what he needs to do. Your approval rating is lower than Nigel Farage's right now.
The thing is, if you make your mind up, as I have done, that we're going to do the difficult things first, then I think it's inevitable that people do feel they're difficult decisions. I mean, I understand that.
Isabel, before I talk to you about the robot, isn't that typical of the mainstream media? This is what he said. Oh, your approval ratings are even lower than Nigel Farage's at the moment. True?
I mean, just ridiculous. I mean, Nigel Farage is one of the most popular politicians in the country. That's why millions of people voted for him and his party at the last election. It's not their fault that the voting system doesn't reflect that in terms of the number of MPs. Nigel Farage is always going to be a much more exciting, interesting, dynamic, charismatic, bright, engaging and, yes, divisive figure than Keir Starmer. I mean, I know who I'd choose to have dinner with.
Can I ask you a question? Because we've spoken since Trump won. Trump, I mean, today made this, he's going to get rid of trans people in the army. He's asking, I mean, all sorts of stuff, right? And people, all the women are shaving their heads in America, wearing black and refusing to have sex with their husbands, and all the Liberals are leaving and all that. Do you not think that election should teach the British not the Constitution, the system here, something rather large, which is that actually the truth of the matter is that the real person is seemingly being ignored. I don't know what phrase to come up with. I call them jams, just about managers. I'm talking about the people that work, bring up their kids, don't break the law, just feel that they're not listened to anymore. And I'm not, Trump, there are many things about Trump I don't like, but he managed to grab that feeling. And that's what a lot of people are crying out for in this country, aren't they?
And it's absolutely there for the taking for a dynamic politician that is not really dislikable. And that's quite difficult, actually. I mean, almost any dynamic politician, any strident politician, any bold leader is actually also dislikable.
Of course, because they spend all the time trying to be all things to all people. The people like Thatcher and Blair didn't care. They had a plan, they had something set out, and they were going for it, whatever the response. Isn't that true leadership, though?
It is, and I think people are just desperate for it in our country. We haven't had those options on the on the table, have we, in recent elections? Of course, we don't have a presidential system, so people are not voting for a prime minister when they go into the polling booth. They're voting for their local MP. But it just doesn't feel like, I suppose with Boris, there was some excitement around him, if we're casting back a few years now. But it just doesn't feel as if there's been someone that everybody, or that a large number of people could rally around and that is selling some hope for our country, because everything's just so negative, isn't it? And, you know, I don't want to be negative all the time. I don't want to be constantly complaining about the direction our amazing country is going in.
But that's the point. But we talked about this last week. I don't believe that we have a leader or a government that are particularly keen on this country or even love this country, and certainly not proud of this country, because all they do is bend to the knee at any foreign court that creates a law that is against, in my mind, most of what's good about this country. I understand people signing it. I understand the frustration. I'm more interested in saying the 44% of you that did not get your asses out to vote in the last general election are part of the reason we're in this mess. So for God's sake, join, as somebody said earlier, join a party or vote next time. I'm not against the petition, but vote, right? That's important.
Absolutely it is. I mean, if you didn't vote, you can't complain. No. And I suppose a lot of people will say, well, there was no point in voting in my constituency because, you know, this, that, the other. But you still got to try and make your voice heard in some way. And actually, where there have been millions of votes that didn't lead to parliamentary seats, that just opens another debate about the voting system. And you and I might disagree on that, and I've changed my mind over it.
What do you mean we might disagree? I said it twice earlier. I think the system's got to change and will change. I genuinely believe that. I think if anything comes from this, that I think that there will be pressure for the parties like Reform. Don't get me the dressed-up Liberal Democrats. 4 million votes, right? 4 million votes. And 5 seats. That will only rise.
It's just wrong. And I think if we had a referendum on it again now, I think that there would be a very significant majority for proportional representation, without a doubt. And people will have forgotten there was a referendum on this way back, I think it was 2011, very, very badly run by the proportional representation side of the argument. That would be totally different now.
I had an argument with somebody about this over the weekend, actually, and the problem with that is, and you know me, I'm all for it, and I want Reform to be successful. Very difficult for us to kick back the whole time about not wanting another Brexit referendum when we're saying we'd like another one on proportional representation. But the truth of the matter is, however it works, you want the people's voice to be heard. But the truth of the matter is, more than anything, get out and vote. Isabel, my thing about the Labour Party is I think they have no plan. However, today, did you watch Liz Kendall, the Work and Pension Secretary, being interviewed by Trevor Phillips at the weekend on Sky? Through utterly gritted teeth, she said that we're going to, you know, there might be a few people who, frankly, are using mental health problems to stop working. And I was like, good God, she sounds like she's Tory. She didn't want to say it. I believe that is symptomatic, and I put it to the lady about spiking earlier, of a government that is reactive rather than proactive, that grabs a headline or something because they haven't got a plan. How do you see that? Because we've been talking about that for ages.
Yeah, I mean, I was a bit sort of depressed by the Mail on Sunday front page, which gave Keir Starmer a free advert to say the square root of nothing about cracking down on benefits. I mean, he wrote a really lame article in which he weakly kind of said, oh, no more business as usual. That's not good enough. You know, we want to hear something much more robust than that, something really meaningful. That just sounds like the government going, oh, you know, we need something positive in the Sunday papers. Everything's been pretty awful lately. There's going to be a load of negative headlines. So how can we get a nice story on the front of one of the Sunday papers?
This is what I fear, but I do fear that people, not fear, this is what makes me happy about the interest that petition has garnered, is I think people are more switched on. Do you remember just before the election when the Tories said we're going to drop tax? I mean, people didn't vote for them. They went, yeah, but you're just saying that because you want to win the election. I think people are seeing through politicians and policies far more nowadays. That's what I think.
I have a growing hope that the worse things get and the tougher it becomes to live a good quality of life in modern Britain, the more hope there is that there is a sort of uprising. And I don't mean literally.
I'm with you so much.
But, you know, that people will rise up and choose something different, because we can't go on like this.
Oh, hold on a second. I've just been told the fact we've said uprising, that could be a hate crime and you and I could be arrested.
No, I was very clear. I was very clear that it was a metaphorical uprising. I don't mean that people should take to the streets.
Don't be scared. No, you can't do that. You can't. No, you can't. You'd be far right. Former Met Police Chief today, this is quite interesting, Lord Hogan Howe, calls for a review of the non-crime hate incidents at the same time that Yvette Cooper, who likes them, also said we need to use more sense. Because as I said to somebody earlier, I could say I don't like your jumper, and I do like your jumper, by the way, but I could say that. You could put the phone down, get offended and phone the police, and I could get actually, you know, approached by whoever. But some poor old woman who's had her house nicked, you know, burgled, she's not going to get a visit. The world's gone nuts, mate.
We don't need a review of non-crime hate incidents. We just need to ditch them. That's it. I've done the review. I've saved a load of time, a load of money. That's it. Just ditch them.
Before we actually, we'll take a couple of calls with you, and then I've got a couple of light-hearted ones. Are you all right for calls?
Oh, yeah.
Daniel Epsom, even he said something wrong then. Daniel, Isabel is with me. What you got, my friend, on Drive?
Well, you know what it is, Jez? The reason the petition's doing so well is because Labour won by default. They won by not saying anything. And if they had have told us that they had have told us how they felt, they would never have won. If they'd have said, we don't like the white working classes or the white lower middle classes, they're at the back of the queue. If they said, Labour, we really don't like your cultures and your heritage, we're going to drag you back to the EU kicking and screaming against your wishes. We're going to punish pensioners. We're going to do a land grab on farmers' land. And we're not going to stop the boats. If anything, we're going to exacerbate the whole issue and we won't smash the games. If they'd have told us actually where they were coming from, they would never have got in. They won by saying nothing. And that's why there's a feeling out there of people being cheated. Millions of people will go, or when the Tories were in power, it can't get any worse than this, can it? It can't. But now it has. It's much, much worse for most people. And I think if there was ever a time for... I've written to the royal family. I've written to the head of the SBS. I've written to loads of people just saying this can't carry on. It's not compatible with how the majority of British people think and feel.
What do you think about that, Isabel?
I think that is such a great call, because it just reflects everything that all of us are feeling. You know, as he says, how can this country carry on being governed in a way that is so out of step with what the silent majority feel? All this nonsense about, you know, let's pay billions of pounds in reparations for the Industrial Revolution or
whilst giving away the Chagos Islands. Brilliant.
It's just nonsense. And the vast majority of people, I'm confident that if we polled them, the vast majority of people would want nothing to do with any of that. And yet this government just carries on regardless.
Daniel Epsom, thank you. Let's go to Cambridge. Martin, you're on Talk Drive. Isabel is with me. What you got, pal?
Yeah, it's basically about the petition. And our system works for the loser's consent. Over Brexit, we had Starmer in particular pushed back against it. Then we had tried to get the second referendum. And we fought our case and we won. Now, the people wanting to say, well, we need another election, we cannot do that. It's dangerous. We only win with a loser's consent. But what we have to do is such as this petition, is show Starmer for what he is. He is a distribution of wealth. He's a communist. And that's why he's giving money to the third world for wind turbines, all that rubbish. And also taking money off he sees as wealthy people, the old age pensioners and the farmers. It's about socialism. And we have to all work together, reform the Conservatives, and we have to unite the right, and we have to fight this person because he is dangerous. He does know what he's doing, Jeremy, but he knows that the Labour Party are finished. This is their last chance to put into practice what they believe in.
I think they'll finish themselves. I think they'll finish themselves. I completely agree. We really appreciate your call. You'd agree with him, Martin, would you, Isabel?
Oh, 100%. But I think in some ways, let's try and put a positive gloss on this. This is actually really exciting. The fact that it is so bad so quickly creates a massive political opportunity for change.
I completely agree. Right, before you go, because you're a very, very busy woman, and we're very grateful to have you on, and I do like your shirt, your jumper. A couple of things. I want to see your face on this. Nottingham University has been accused of reverse engineering. I don't know what this means. I have no idea. Historic links to slavery by an aristocratic family after a report claimed that they profited from it. This is a the 7th Duke of Portland, whose ancestors helped establish Nottingham University and who was one of its most distinguished benefactors, gaining from the social capital of his slave-owning ancestors. It's almost 50 years after he died. They're now slagging off the person that set up their university. What's that called? I don't even know. Reverse engineering. What the hell's going on?
Too many people have too little to do that is meaningful. That's what's going on. We're too busy for that nonsense, aren't we? Why does anyone give it any airtime? I mean, what a load of absolute codswallop.
Right, I love that. My mum used to say that, codswallop. Now, is this codswallop? Is Isabel Oakeshott going to be honest with us here on Talk Drive? I guess she is. Wokery risks killing off the ancient tradition of having a kiss under the mistletoe. Apparently the leading supplier of plants in Wells in Worcestershire, they have an annual sort of thing. The guy, Mr Mistletoe Champion, he laments the fact that the audience is down by 25%, by 75%. Nobody wants to buy mistletoe because it can be perceived as misogynistic or sexist or whatever.
I say let's have extra mistletoe. My mum and dad used to keep the mistletoe up for months after Christmas, and it just engendered good feelings and good vibes.
Let's all snog everybody. That's what you're trying to say. Is that what you're trying to say?
More mistletoe, not less mistletoe.
Good for you. I love you, Isabel. Thank you so much indeed.